Hello, my Livi lovelies, and welcome to another edition of the Almondvale Podcast, a podcast that brings you all things Livingston FC, West Lothian's most successful and only professional football club. As per, I am joined by my co-host Leo Minnis.
Hello there.
And our itty-bitty Lion Cub panellists, Thomas Fro, Owen Innes, and Mr. Stephen Povey.
Hello.
Hello.
This week we will look back at our Pittodrie penalty pain following the heartbreaking Scottish Cup exit in Aberdeen. We will also be joined by ex-Livingston winger Danny Denholm, who will chat about his brief spell at Livingston, as well as talking about his podcast Lower League Ramblings and about the state of the lower leagues in Scotland this season, among multiple other topics. And finally, we'll be finishing up on a new feature, Almondvale Boulevard, where we mix Livingston FC with all things Hollywood, baby.
You've brought your popcorn. You've brought your ticket. The adverts are finished, and now you're ready for the main event, which is nothing but sheer West Lothian football-based content with us here at the Almondvale Podcast. This week saw Aberdeen take on J. Emmanuel Thomas at Pittodrie in the Scottish Cup, and despite a much improved performance from the line, it ended in more heartbreak as the game went all the way to penalties and Aberdeen managed to squeeze through to the next round. Meaning that is now 16 years since Livingston reached any further than the fourth round of the Scottish Cup. Now, let's talk about any moments that stood out for you boys. Povey, why don't you start us off?
Well, I think obviously I've got to say about Jet's performance because, you know, I've been fairly critical of him, but it was his second best performance, well, equal best if we. So the Hamilton game, he was brilliant for half of it, but yeah, he played brilliant. It was he got the goals, and then it was just just when I was like. He scored the penalty as well. Just when I was thinking, fair enough, he might be winning me over here. At the end of the game, it comes out that he's not even going to be with us next season. So I suppose my point that I got from that, I'm not going to dwell on the result or whatever, because as you say, kind of used to getting out of the cup at this point. But I feel a bit like, why are we going to... I don't see the point in playing Jet now, even though he's just hit a bit of form, looked brilliant against Aberdeen. But now I'm like, why are we not playing Mullen? I thought the reason we weren't playing him was because he might be leaving, but yet we played Jet. And for me, Mullen, obviously, he's been, during that amazing spell we had, he was one of our top players during that. And even when he's featured recently, which has been few and far between, he's hit the bar. That was against Hamilton as well, I think. He's having a go. I don't know. I just feel like I feel like the season's sort of drawn to a close after that result, and I want to see players that are going to come in next season. I don't know what your thoughts are, guys, but yeah.
Wait,
that's what I feel.
So you don't want to play Jet, even though Jet was probably by far our best player when we're generally struggling for the rest of the season, but you still play a guy who's in any form just because he's going to leave at the end of the season, which he kind of always was because he was never going to stay in Livi. Well, I can't say I agree with you at all, Mr.
Yeah,
Fleury.
well, I would say it is. This might sound ridiculous, but he was in front of the Premier Sports. He was in front of the cameras. I feel like he upped his game for it.
Yeah,
he definitely has improved, but I still feel we could play him against Hibs. Of course, Hibs is going to be over. We could play him in the remaining games, and anything that's not on the telly, it could just be pish again, to be honest, or just I don't know. He's not been consistent. When he's played well, my God, some goals as well. He's clearly talented, and everyone rates him. I just feel, I don't know. I'd rather see Poplatnik still.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know we've got this fifth place to play for, but it just feels a wee bit hypocritical playing Jet and not playing Mullen. I think that's my beef.
Well, I'm sure the boys will go into it when we get around to it. But, Owen, what are your thoughts on the game?
I thought it was quite a good game. I thought we played exceptionally well for quite a lot of it. Again, Jackson Longridge for me was man of the match. I thought
Change a record.
I thought he did very, very well. Jet was very, very good though. I think I see with Jet's a weird one, right? Yeah, fair enough. We pretty much now know that he's leaving. What's the point in playing him? The point in playing him is to try and get fifth. You know, like I know that myself and Liam were on the Strong Opinion Hibs podcast, and I kind of said, you know, it's like, you know, I don't really care. We've finished top 6. You know, that's a good finish for a team like us. So, you know, do I really care if we finish 5th or 6th? I'd rather, of course, finish 5th because it's ultimately going to be tens of thousands more to go towards the club and the budget and things like that. There's been, Martin Dale was saying today that the budget's going to be heftily reduced next season because of the uncertainty with fans returning and stuff like that. But, you know, so if we want to finish 5th, we need to be scoring goals. And who's scoring goals at the moment? Poplatnik or Jet? Shame to say it is Jet that's scoring goals. Mm-hmm. When you look as well at the previous game against Aberdeen, I think it was Liam that made this point, was that Jet did very well against Aberdeen the last time that we played him.
Yeah.
And he did the business. Fair enough, we're out the cup again. The penalties are always a lottery, as they say. I think Stryjet could have done a lot better. But it was good to see him back. He made a couple of really good saves. Mm-hmm. I thought Fitzwater, again, I'm still not convinced by Fitzwater, but Guthrie's got to be doing better. Sibbald, I thought, played quite well. Holt was just awful. He wasn't even I don't even think you could have given him a rating on Saturday. Like it was like less than 0 for me. I think he was terrible. And has been declining. Also, he came in, he kind of got good, and then started declining. But anyway, to kind of properly kind of surmise the game, I thought that we played very well. We got sucker punched for both goals, I would say. You know, we got hit on the counter attack, maybe a bit too much complacency. But it was good to get goals, to score 2 goals as well. You know, not something that we've been doing a lot recently. So positive going into the next few games. I'm hoping that we can get a result against Hibs. I can't see it. I can't see us getting a result in any game for the rest of the season. But it was quite a positive performance, I thought.
Thomas, what did you think about the game?
I'm a man from south of the border, so penalty defeats come quite naturally to me. I'm very used to getting beaten on penalties, so it was painful, but it is what it is. And yeah, I think we played well, and I think there's positives to take there. I think we'll pick up a few points for the rest of the season. I can't see us beating any of the ugly sisters, but I think there's points to be picked up elsewhere. And you know, I just want us to kick on. Jet was a highlight. I thought he was great. That kind of link up with Pittman was brilliant. Something that we've been looking for, driving from the midfield, picking the ball up early. You know, playing those simple passes, which was lovely to see. It was a great goal. And then obviously putting the penalty away with the strangest run-up ever. Boy thinks he's Paul Pogba. But yeah, as an Englishman, penalty losses are a bit numb to me, so I can kind of get on with my life.
Liam, can you talk about your favourite moments or your least favourite?
Yeah, I thought it was a good, brilliant performance, to be honest. And the thing is, if we were watching that and it was a league game, we'd be frustrated that we only got a point. But yeah, I mean, going up to Aberdeen and getting a 2-2 draw isn't, you know, the worst result ever. But I think it was, yeah, I don't know. The thing that frustrated me the most was the Devlin cutback and the reaction to it. So Devlin like powers down the wing, gets into the box, you're thinking, just smash it across goal. It will get something. We'll get a corner. We'll be able to stay up the park. But his cutback to whoever was just such a shit decision from him. And then from there, Aberdeen go up and break up the pitch. But it's all, Owen sort of mentioned this on the Hibs thing that we've done, that we always sort of analyse these moments after. Like, you can't, Devlin didn't mean to do what he done, but, and then but as I said, the reaction from that sort of, I think it might have been Bartley for some reason was in the Aberdeen box, and he sort of goes like, "What are you doing?" to Devlin when he plays that ball, and like they two sort of stop, and then by the time they've stopped, Canberry's halfway up the pitch, and you're thinking, "Fuck!" Like it's 3 against 3 here. Guthrie does. Is it his fault? Might be. There's a couple of players at fault for that goal. It was a great finish, though. It was a good into the top corner. Can't really argue that. But in terms of positive things, I thought Jet was brilliant. But then that was the worst part, was knowing that he played so well, scored 2 goals, but immediately we were told that he's leaving. You're just sort of like, we've been waiting for this guy to turn up all season. And as Povey said, I understand a wee bit where he's coming from, but not completely. Like, I would rather us get points through playing Jet than losing every game for not playing him just because he's leaving. Like, I think it's good that we're finally getting to see a wee bit of him. Is he doing it for the cameras? Maybe. Like, again, we sort of touched on the Hibs thing, that it's going to be a move abroad that he's getting. It's not going to be a glamour move. It's going to be to Iran, Afghanistan, like China. It'll be somewhere that, he'll spend 6 months and go, "Oh, I hate this," but he'll make a shit ton of money. But yeah, and Jason Holt as well. I thought he was dreadful, but we just kept persisting with him. And then when I seen him coming up to take the penalty, it was a great strike. He never meant to miss the penalty, but in my head, I know the conversation that he was probably having in the halfway line of, "Oh, I've had a shit game. I can try and make up for it."
Yeah.
And then, but in my head, I was like, why? Because it's not going to work. Like, and as soon as he stepped up, I just knew what was coming. But also, Max had a good game during the game, but I thought the penalties, it's a 50-50 with penalties, but fuck me, he was going so early.
Yeah.
He was making it so obvious, like, where he was going. So to lose on penalties is disappointing.
We promised you another belting guest, and baby, we did not hold back. A part of the 2013-14 championship squad, and probably one of the most intellectual guests we've had on. He's a professional footballer, podcaster, writer, teacher, and all-round fantastic man. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome ex-Livingston winger and Lower League Ramblings host, Mr. Danny Denholm! Hey. Danny, how are we doing?
Good, that's a heck of an introduction. Probably splashes of hyperbole there, but I'll take it. Honoured to be on.
Well, I think you can definitely the only guest I'll ever say hyperbole. But to be honest, so I think we were probably right. Okay, we're going to go straight into our quick fire round. Okay, so just say the first thing that comes into first answer that comes into your head. Okay, so are we ready to go?
Let's go.
Nice one. Okay, pizza or burgers?
Pizza.
Almondvale or Bayview?
Bayview.
Wrong. Football players tweeting generic shite tweets or noisy eaters?
Oh, it's got to be footballers tweeting shite. I'll get into that later.
McNulty or Griffiths?
McNulty.
Open goal or view from the terrace?
View from the terrace, probably.
Nice. Adidas, Livi home top or this season's East Fife kit?
It's got to be the East Fife kit, the tartan rug.
Wait. Levine or Robbie Nielsen?
Oh. Nielsen.
Gary Boland or Darren Young?
Darren Young.
Darren Young or Dick Campbell?
Campbell.
Kyle or Keegan Jacobs?
Keegan.
Chinese or Indian?
Indian.
Nice. Superb.
See, already you said there's anything you worried about. There's stuff I've already said that I'm going to get in trouble for. I prefer Dick Campbell, Darren Young, my current gaffer. He's not listening.
Well, gotta go for it. Right, okay, let's just get stuck in. You started your professional footballing career with Forfar Athletic in 2012, being picked up from Stirling University, and after one successful season, you were asked to join the Richie Burke Revolution. Livingston FC in the Championship. Couple of things. Was the aim always to try become a full-time player, especially after having a good start with Forfar? And were there any other clubs sniffing about you, or was it just Livi?
Probably previous to that season, no, I was just playing. Any kind of wage for playing was incredible to me. I'd never been paid to play in my life. So, yeah, at that stage, no. But then when you start to do well and young and you read, before Twitter wasn't really a big thing back then, so you'd hear little snippets in the papers and that, and I'm not hearing any of this, but then it sort of turns your head a bit, and a couple of agents wanted to speak to me, and I had no interest in that. And then Livingston were the only full-time club who gave me a proper offer, a contract offer, and I'd never been full-time in my life, and money wasn't great, but it was too good an opportunity to turn down. I still had memories of Livingston at the time. Obviously when I signed they weren't great, but the memories were when they had Brotto and Fernandez and they beat Hibs in the CIS Cup final, which was great for me. So they were a fairly big club in my mind. So yeah, I was buzzing, as I say on Twitter, to sign and get started for Livingston at the time.
You previously said on other podcasts that you didn't particularly like the full-time setup, but how was the initial buzz going from part-time to full-time? Do you think that it would be a real springboard onto bigger things in football, or were you just kind of focused on the season ahead?
Just to see what would happen, really, and just live in the present with that, because I never thought I'd even get to that stage, never mind to play part-time. So it worked at Forfar, just get in and play and see what happens. So it was just get as many games as you can, get as many goals as you can, go under the radar a bit and score a few goals. So getting an opportunity at that time, and obviously I've said I didn't really like it in hindsight, was proper excited at the time.
As we mentioned when you came on board at Livi, we had Richie Burke in charge, who I think even the biggest Livingston virgin would struggle to remember who that was. But Mark Birchall was his assistant at the time. What was Birchall like to work with, as he obviously had a pretty top-notch career in the late 90s, early 2000s?
I like Birchall. I knew his brother was sort of managing me at Stirling University. He had an older brother, Stephen Birchall, who played juniors and stuff. It was great, just a good people person. And I think his brother was exactly the same. Like, you could have a good chat with him. He was a great assistant in that regard. And he was the one that kind of made my mind up, because I could have stayed part-time and there was good offers financially part-time to stay, because Richie Burke, as you know, you probably can't remember him, but I didn't get a great vibe off him at the time. I felt like we signed Danny Denholm because he's cheap, and I don't think he really wanted me. But Birchall, with his kind of, is sort of, he seemed human, and a lot of football managers don't. So that was what he was, quite pivotal in me coming to Livingston, to be honest with you.
You started the season pretty well. A couple of goals in your first couple of months, including an opener against Queen of the South and a 3-3 draw in the second league game of the season. Was that an important thing to help you settle in and make sure you justified the rapid move up the ranks from Lowland League to Scottish Championship in 2 seasons?
Huge, because I went in, I was injured in pre-season, so I didn't have a good start anyway. And then I didn't get a good vibe with the gaffer at the time, Richie Burke, and he had me sort of with the youngsters pretty much. And then we were struggling for strikers. I think McNulty was struggling. We didn't have Andrew Barrowman at the time. There was a few other injuries. And even then I thought, here's a chance for me. And then the Thursday night, it was like an under-20s game, and I had to play in that. And it went to extra time. It was like, under-20s final or something. And I was playing in that, so I had no chance here. And there was another injury, so he had to play me on the Saturday. So I knew this is my chance. Even though I was playing up front in that game, which is quite alien to me. I needed to do something in that game. So I remember having a good game, probably one of the few positive games I had in a Livingston jersey. And I scored, and we were a bit unlucky. It was a crazy game. It was 3-3 at the time. So what a relief when I went coming off that park, even though we didn't win the game, knowing that I've got a right chance now to kick on. And to be fair to Richie at the time, I think I started the next fair few games for him until It wasn't long, but a couple of games later, he was shown the door. So no, it was huge for me in that opening game.
So, like you said, Richie Burke got relieved of his duties in early September and was replaced by the suit and tie tracksuit bottom wearing enigma that is John McGlynn. Now, this season he has Raith Rovers playing some unbelievably sexy football, but his footballing philosophy at Livi wasn't particularly great. Did you feel like you had to step it up a wee bit again to try and make him see that silky wingers were the way to go?
Yeah, I don't think he had much time at the time for silky wingers or just wingers in general, to be honest with you. He came in I really like John. I really like him. He came in, but he was quite pragmatic about his stuff. And I remember the first game he played and he came in, I think the one change he made for the starting lineup was put me on the bench. So I knew I had my work out again right from that moment. But as you see, I'm with you. I'm watching his Raith Rovers side at times and I'm like, whoa, this is incredible. This is probably the best style of football in the lower leagues. Well, I doubt even better than a lot of Premier League teams. And our Livingston team was far from that. Maybe it's just he's quite pragmatic. If he's got the players, he'll play it, and if he doesn't have the players, then he'll make you difficult to beat. And I think that's what he tried to do at Livingston.
Do you have any other good John McGlynn stories? He's kind of got this weird substitute teacher vibe about him. He wanted to be sort of not one of the boys, but he came in and wanted to have a bit of part. I really liked him. I thought he was another one that was. He's a great people person. Actually, I really enjoyed him. You wouldn't think it sometimes when you hear him, but he's got a lot of time for folk, not just away from the football alone. He's got a lot of time for people in their personal lives as well. Mm-hmm. He was great with me, even though from a professional point of view, I don't think he didn't make me that highlight, but he was great with me. He was great around the place as well, because at the time we were in a lot of financial trouble. I think at the time there was all sorts going on in the boardroom, and he just got marked in. I think the showers were broke. He was a plumber by trade, so he was going and fixing that and stuff like that. I heard something similar on a podcast that David Martindale doing the same, so maybe it's still going on, I don't know. But John was that kind of guy as well. He would do other bits and pieces, and they made the best of the sort of situation in terms of the financial stuff. He got the kit man, I'm sure, is still there, Cheb, doing us in the gym. He got that program all sorted, and even though he was a kit man, he was doing that, so he was using the best of the resources. So I had a lot of time for him. The best thing between John McGlynn was his relationship with Jimmy Scott. It was just the weirdest thing ever. They loved each other, but they the weirdest pair of humans. You never put those two together. Just like Jimmy, just different planet. John McGlynn, just very professional, methodical. And the office, the changing room where we got changed was right over for the changing room, and Jimmy was right by the door. And if he was dropped, Jimmy would just go, take the piss, but he'd be like, "Can't I believe I'm dropped? I'm better than all yous," and stuff like that. It's like, nah, fucking specky prick, fucking dropping me. And then John McGlynn would come through the door and be like, "All right, Jimmy." I'm like, "I how you gaffer," and all that. Just the weirdest thing. So obviously he knew he was joking, and he dealt with that situation well, I think, because he could have made a bigger point, and his ego could have been hit, and he could have said something. But Jimmy was so popular with the boys, and he managed them really well, and what a partnership those two had. So it was the first season of the promotion playoffs in the Championship, and we had a pretty talented pool of players at the start of the season, with the likes of Mark Minolte, Col Donaldson, Stefan Skugel, and then experienced players like Martin Scott and Andy Barrowman. Do you remember what the aims were for the season? Was there ever a mention of pushing for the playoffs? I think it was playoffs was the aim. I think you're conscious of what papers and stuff said at the time, and they were tipping us for not relegation, but the sort of second bottom, third bottom, and we felt we had a good squad, a good team, as you say, a good mix, and it was so important to keep hold of those McNulty, and we fought Skugel and Call as well. But McNulty, I think if you look back now, he was the reason why we even came close-ish to the playoffs. He kind of carried us that season. I think he scored 20 plus goals, maybe just shy of that, but without him we would have really struggled. I think we were a bit workman-like at times. So it was probably a good blend to have the experienced boys, your men Sings, Andrew Barrowman as well, but overall I think it was 6 or something we finished that season. Bit of a mess season, overall really, probably one that doesn't stand out in your guys' minds anyway. I mentioned a few players previously, Martin Scott being one of them. Heard he's a bit of a weapon. Any good Jimmy Scott stories? Do you know what? He's
cut from a different cloth to me, but loved him. He's one of the guys that just stands out in my memory from playing, that just I will never forget playing with you. Just I loved him. I thought he was a good, honestly, heart of gold, lovely guy. And some of the stuff he used to do, because we used to train at Muirston, which was about 10 minutes away drive or whatever, and I just passed my test in this tiny crappy little red Mazda, and he had just been paid off by Hibs and had this nice big Audi, and whenever we got to lights I'd see him coming behind me and slow down, and then you just feel a bump in the back of your car. He was playing bumper cars with you on the way to training with this massive Audi, and I'm bagging nerves, sweating, like got people in the car with me, like to go to training with, and I'm really bad at driving at this stage. Got this guy doing that, and then I would park and he'd box me in, make sure that I couldn't get out, like he'd put his king right next to the thing, and he'd just a complete and utter, I don't know, he's just mad, just an absolute mad guy. So, but away from that, he had another weird relationship with Musa Mampaya at the time, right back, and just again devout Muslim, like proper devout Muslim, and Jimmy just inappropriate, etc. But they had this weird relationship. It was like best of mates. I think they were doing stuff on their days off with each other. He's an enigma. I seen him last week actually. He's on the bench at Forfar now, and he seems a bit more. I think he's maybe calmed down a little bit. But no, only positive things to say about Jimmy.
Were there any other big characters in that team? So Liam's dropped a wee story in here, so I'm hoping you remember it, otherwise it's going to be pretty awkward. So he's heard there's a good story including Kyle Wilkie and John McGlynn in video analysis.
Oh yeah, that's about. I think I've tweeted that a while ago. Again, another one that stands out with memories. It's not my performances on the pitch; it's those stupid little things that stand out with him at Livingston. I think it was a big cup tie, so he got to the fourth round of the Scottish, and it was St Johnstone away. And they were playing nice football at the time. I know they had this reputation, but they're playing nice football at the time. And John McGlynn loves his video analysis and his little laser pen, and he's all over it. And then he had their team on a chart beside it, and it had all these players set up and all that. And I had the boy David Witherspoon right midfield. Kyle Wilkie was just like, "Oh, Gaffer." He was like, "What? That boy won't be playing." And he was like, "Who?" He said that there's a boy in their team. He got stabbed at the weekend. He got stabbed at the weekend, and with a spoon. And he went, "Nah, with a knife." And everybody was absolutely like pissing themselves, right? And Kyle Wilkie didn't play for about 8 weeks after that. So I think John McGlynn took it personally. And his timing with this it was superb. I just can't do it justice. With the way I'm telling it, there are no comic timing, but his comic timing it was just brilliant. He built it up. So I probably regrets it in hindsight. He didn't play, as I say, for about 6, 7, 8 weeks.
So that season, the team started to show some erratic form, especially after January when the club sold Stefan Skugel and Cole Donaldson. The owners at the time weren't the most clear with supporters, and it seemed that none of the money from those sales went back into the club. What do you remember about the way the club was kind of run at that time, and did you have any dealings with the owners?
It just seemed a bit shady, but I have no experience of playing full time at that stage. But I think there was Jed Nixon was there, and Neil, I can't remember his surname, but I think he just seemed a bit shady. And I remember Skugel and McCall and McNulty would occasionally see them as we're leaving the ground to go up to Muirston, and they talk to anybody else. They would just talk to those 3 guys. I'm just like, they wouldn't even look at you or acknowledge it. Mm-hmm. It's like that didn't sit right with me first and foremost. Mm-hmm. And then just in terms of like the financial situation, it wasn't going back in the club at all, because there was stuff like Masusa's we had to pay out our own pocket for. I think Burton O'Brien was good at organising things, and boys were struggling with injuries and stuff. And we'd had Andy the physio was great, but you've got a big squad, got to look after the players, and we had to pay our own pocket 20 quid each if we wanted this masseuse to come in. And
sake, man.
I was already on peanuts, so I did it because I didn't want to be like, who's this tight bastard, but it wasn't right. And it was stuff like lunches you're paying for yourself, and I know it doesn't seem like much, and I pay for my lunches now when I'm going to work, etc. But if you're expected to do double sessions, you feel that should be part of the framework at a club. And I'd imagine now at Livingston, like night and day from the time. It just seemed seemed a bit shady, and I think that followed on for another couple of years looking into it, and I wasn't surprised to see them relegated into League One because they were clinging on really with that kind of practice.
Yeah.
When did you start thinking this full-time football stuff is absolutely pish?
Quite quickly, actually. I think it was before Christmas anyway. It was this stage where I was like, I'm playing now and then, starting now and then, I'm working hard, but financially I'm not doing very well. I'm struggling. I'm living in my mum and dad's basement pretty much. I'm 22-year-old and my pals are kicking on with their careers. And I'm bored as well because even when you've got a double session, you're in at 9, but then you're still away by 2:30. And I didn't know what to spend my time doing, so I was bored. I like to keep loads of things spinning at once, and I just got bored at it, and I became a bit disillusioned with it. And also, I also feel that the managers have their favourites at part-time level. You've got distractions, you can go and do other stuff. But I felt Livingston had his favourites, and I wasn't one of them. So I felt on a hiding to nothing as well. So I made my mind up quite quickly. I actually got offered a new deal at Livingston, but I made my mind up quite quickly that not from I'm going back part-time, which was a weird thing to do at the time. I think nowadays players are doing it more, but when the opportunity for a full-time contract comes up, they used to really turn it down. But at that stage, I was pretty much done with it.
Was there a wee bit of you like going, let's just give this another go? Like,
not really, because the money was the same as well, and it would be another year earning that, which was honestly terrible money. And I could get more at part-time as well. So I was like, I'm going to get more at part-time and I can start a career, which I need to pull my finger at. And honestly, I'm pragmatic and realistic enough to know that I'm not the best player in the world. So like, even with a good run, even with games, I was never going to hit super heights. So it was always going to be a slog. Even if I'd done the best I could possibly do and maximise my potential, I was never going to make big money from football. I'd be probably jobbing about the Championship for the rest of my career. And for me, that didn't seem so appealing.
See, like on that hindsight, would you say would you look back disappointed overall, and like especially looking at that season, how it went, or like are you happy about having that experience?
Happy to have tried it. I mean, what the experience to say that I'm a footballer. That was all I wanted when I was a child, to say you're a footballer, and I had to give it a go. And as I say, I'd formed memories of Livingston prior to when I signed, so I honestly had to give it a go. And it wasn't awful. It wasn't an awful experience. I did enjoy it. There was a lot of good there, but just overall, I was just not for me. And if I hadn't tried it, I would have massively regretted it as well, I think.
So after Livi, you resigned for Forfar under Dick Campbell again. You obviously went on to play under him again at your extremely successful spell at Arbroath. Obviously, the guy is an absolute legend in the Scottish game. So have you got any Dick Campbell stories for us, and what's he like to work with?
Incredible, millions of stories. But when someone asks, you fail to remember. But I've probably got a few, but. Just incredible. And his team talks were just that you'll never see anything like it. And he actually used to get people in. I think they won like sports dinners a chance to watch him do a team talk. So at Arbroath, you'd have like these punters down the back of the changing room watching the team talk. It was bizarre. But him and his brother Pink, they just play off each other so well. And I remember one game, it was windy at Arbroath, and Dick's giving his team talk and he's getting players' names wrong, just the usual, brilliant. And then Pink starts talking, and Dick's like making faces behind him, like sometimes he does it, and everybody's pissing themselves, and Pink's getting more irate, and he's like, "Fucking, is that you, fucking gaffer, fucking Dick?" And he's just like, "No, I'm not doing anything." And he's getting more and more irate, Pink, and he's trying to get the instructions, and Dick just lets off this massive ripper, like the biggest fart you've ever heard ever. And we're all just pissed at Pink's like, fucking just I've enough, and he storms off. So Dick comes and he's just sort of looking at the boys, waits till everybody stop laughing, and goes, he gets his hand behind his bum and goes, "Got to be up for a walk. Got to be up for a walk. There's a massive wind out there today, boys. Just wafted. But it's just that kind of thing was just the pair of them were just brilliant. Like they used to just because they had a big thing about cash money. They used to pretend they had loads of. Well, I think Pink does have loads of money, and they'd be like, I'll beat you in a fight, and then they say I'll give you 20 for I'll beat you in a fight right there and then. Boys, like, what's going on? Two old men, and then Pink would just take this wad out of his pocket and just chuck it on the floor and go, come on then, whatever. They'd have a wee wrestle, etc. It was just, and they did that, and then we'd be getting changed. Just be getting changed, just leaving them to it. But no, honestly, in terms of his man management, I know it's probably said a lot about him, but brilliant. He knows when to be serious. He knows when to take the piss. He's takes an interest in boys, just like John McGlynn did. Really takes an interest in boys. Very loyal, appreciates loyalty, and he's a good judge of character. I think if you look at his dressing rooms, he puts together a dressing room with no cocks, really, no arseholes. And if there is, he gets them out on their arse very, very quickly, no matter how good they are. If you look at our both team, there's no real standout, brilliant players. Same with our forward side, but we always punched above our weight, and I really hope they stay up, and I think they will.
Oh, don't mention Jack Hamilton. He's a stand-up guy.
Jack Hamilton's superb, but he's on loan. He's one of yours. So yeah, he's done great. He's done absolutely great. I love Jack. He was brilliant for East Fife as well. So I hope he kicks on when he gets back to use.
Your second stint at Forfar also seen you play under Almondvale favourite Gary Boland. So what was a day with Gary Boland like? We've heard so many decent stories about him, both a player as a man and a manager, and he's slowly becoming like one of our favourite people ever. Like we desperately want him on the show, Gary Boland. So any Gaza stories there?
I don't know if I've got the same view as you. I don't find him that entertaining. He was hard bastard. Like you would not mess with him in that. But I'd had Dick Campbell, so nothing he could say would ever give me the fear, but for me Dick's scarier. So that's his sort of, I don't know, his go-to, isn't it? But when he first came in, he just came in angry. He just came in not because we hadn't performed very well previously, and I think it was a wrong attitude. I think he had the idea that the boys had got the previous manager this sack, it's your fault, and I think he overworked boys, and there was a lot of experienced characters in the dressing room, and it just didn't work. And in the second season, because we'd been relegated, he kept his job. He sort of changed, which I liked. He adapted, and there's players like Thomas O'Brien, who now is doing really well, but it was brilliant for us, our best player at Forfar. And they just managed him better, because if you start going irate at him, Tam will just go, nah, not interested, and it won't affect it just won't help things. So he was more lenient with him, and it helped. But I genuinely didn't. I don't know what, like, the stories with him. He was just fairly angry guy when he came in to manage. But there was nothing. I know he had a big spat with Dick Campbell and stuff like that, because we were both going for the league. But it was no real funny stories with him. But I did. To be fair, towards the end of it, I really enjoyed playing. And the last year, I did enjoy playing for him. The first 6 months were hard, but the last year, I did get on with him.
I think the main thing we find funny is more about I'm hearing about him on nights out just being Raj trying to fight folk. I think it's more like, and us finding him so funny by, like, we've heard a story about booting bins across the rooms and stuff like that. Imagine for us as outsiders, that's why we find it funny. But imagine being managed under that.
I think there was a couple of like dressing rooms that took a battering. Like Iron Away, there was either him or David Cox, one of the pair of them. But the door got booted in, and they had to pay damages. And there was Peterhead. I think we had won 17 games, and Peterhead came back and beat us 3-2. They punched a tactics board. But for me, it was like full outrage. I was just like, nah, not having it. At the time, and didn't really have the desired effect on the experienced players, and I wasn't experienced at the time, but the players like myself. But yeah, I've heard the odd story about him fighting, etc., or wanting to have a go and nights out. And I wouldn't mess with him, to be fair. I've heard he's a bit of a hard bastard. So yeah, different to me, very different to me.
must have been like, because your experience there that you're sharing was with Dick Campbell sounds like you guys must have just loved going in all the time, to play for him and train for him and everything,
Absolutely, because I think full time it would be different. Part time, you work hard. As I say, I'm drained all day, but I won't have a laugh. I won't have a bit of fun as well. And you go in, You know straight away they're just going to be, you're going to be pissing yourself. So every time previous, you're just already laughing. And then some of the training stuff was good. Like we enjoyed small seeded games boxes. We love that kind of thing. But some of the stuff you're like, what is this? Like pair up, like in a box, pair up, and then start boxing each other. Like start hitting each other. So me and like Gavin Swanky would always pair up and just like, try and hit each other in the head because we'd just pretend because we're not. And it was like the leg slapping. If it was a cold night, he'd have you like right on around, sidestep, like right on my whistle. All about slapping folk on the legs. See how many slaps you can get. Just like fucking hell. You beat the runs as well. Be like, you just make up these runs. Like, we're going to do 60 of these runs. I'm like, I've only got an hour to train here. And then you'd be doing these crazy runs. They were just weird. They weren't like hard. They were just weird runs. And then you'd go, how many you've done? We'd done like 8, and be like 24. And be like, all right, very good. And then we'd keep going. And then how many you've done? Be like, we've done 36. All right, that's it. Just fucking call it. We'll do a wee game up the road. So like, it's just those little mannerisms and these. Yeah, it's just hilarious. Him and Pink and this whole team. I think the young A as well. Just like the old boys brigade, but great entertainment. Great entertainment.
So you're not just a footballing extraordinaire. You also started a blog in 2018 called Lower League Ramblings, detailing your experiences as a part-time player in Scotland. Then from there, you started the excellent, and I can definitely recommend it, Lower League Ramblings podcast. What was it that inspired your writing and podcast? Did you just feel there was a bit of a gap in the market? And did you bank on the podcast in particular becoming as popular as it has become?
Thanks, kind of you say. The writing was the first thing, I think, and I don't know. I like, as I said at Livingston, I didn't have enough things to fill my day, and it's still, even now when I'm working hard, it still needs some things to fill my day. So that was one of the things. And also, I read a report from the Red Tops on a low league game, and it was just a load of crap, players' names wrong, no idea, just sensationalised and rubbish. So just thought I'd write something from the players' point of view, because at that stage there wasn't podcasts weren't really there, or writing for players wasn't really there either. So I just thought I'd give it a go, and I think I wrote about Albion Rovers being a heap, being a dump. I didn't think many people would see it because I didn't have many followers on Twitter or that, but it got picked. People seem to enjoy it, and I think I'm one of them that if I get told, "Oh, that's good," I like that feedback, and then that sort of wants me writing more stuff. So wrote a few more bits and pieces. It's just been a good outlet for me, really. And since then, I've been lucky. Nutmeg magazine, which is very, very good, but incredible writers. Proper writers, not scuddy footballers, but like they asked me to write something for them, so I've wrote a couple of bits and pieces for them, and to have that in print, like, that's big, because my mum's a librarian, she's good at English, I'm rubbish at English at school, so she never thought I'd amount to anything like that. So she's got no works published, I do, so 1-0 to me against my mum, obviously. And in terms of like the podcasting, I've always wanted to do a podcast years ago, because I used to love the old XFM Ricky Gervais ones back in the day, and I used to love the Guardian football ones back, James Richardson ones. I know he's somewhere else now. Back when I was at uni, undergrad, but I just didn't know how to record these things, not how to get them up. It's just probably laziness on my part. So I started this podcast, and then I realised how to start it, and I spoke to a couple of guys that knew what they were doing and got a graphic from me, because I don't know that stuff. I don't know what to do, graphics, etc. And then since then, I just, when I've got the time, try to get folk on and talk about some of the issues or talk about their careers, and it's just something you enjoy doing, just chatting football. I'm a football nerd, but when it comes down to it, I love football, always have. So just to chat about football, that's all I want to be doing. So if people like it, great. But even the less popular ones that I've done, I've enjoyed doing them. So it's been good, and hopefully I'll do some more. But it's just I do feel that as I'm talking on our podcast, there's just so many podcasts now. So if I'm not enjoying doing it, if I'm not enjoying doing the podcast, I probably won't continue to do them. But if I'm enjoying them, I'll just continue. But so much choice, we're spoiled for choice these days.
So you have had some brilliant guests on the podcast, Keegan Jacobs being a personal highlight, and the episode with physiotherapist Craig Reynolds is probably one of the funniest podcasts that Liam has ever listened to. Who's been your favourite guest so far, and who would be the dream booking? Who would be your absolute favourite guest to have on?
Probably favourite guest, probably John Rankin, because I didn't expect it to go off the way, to go in the tangents it went. And I'd seen somewhere on some Wikipedia page that they're spelling Brazil, and I thought, that's fucking weird. That is very strange. I didn't know this. And I thought we'd maybe go over a couple of sentences. I know an hour is hour of his time. And then we just got into that, and it took up pretty much the whole show. But because you're just like, what is going on here? It was just the maddest story ever, Brazil and how he was treated and etc. And over there, it was crazy. So for me, that was the most enjoyable one I've done. In terms of dream guest, it's got to be Sir Richard Campbell, Sir Dick Campbell. But the problem is, he's hard to understand. Like, so you need subtitles or something, but you can't get that in podcast format. So someone like him or who else would be good? I don't know really. I think it's got to be Sir Richard Campbell probably. He's the one, but I thought about getting him on, but it's just, I'm still feared him. You know, it's still that relationship. I love him, but I don't want to cross that line, and he'll probably just absolutely obliterate me with his patter, because a wee side note, played golf with his son. I'm good friends with his son, Yano, who's at Montrose, and this was in lockdown, just after we were out on the golf courses, and he lives by the Loughaley golf course, and I've just seen this big figure walk down the hill and stopping people from driving because he walked across 5 fairways, and then Yano knows straight away, he knows it's his dad. It's fucking Dick, it's a gaffer. So he's came down and he's just slaughtered me straight away, and I was like 2 up by that stage, and then I crumbled, and he ended up walking round with us for 9 holes. I thought he was just going to say hi. He was just walking round with his umbrella in his hand, just slaughtering me the whole time. Just like, that's why I never give you a fucking new contract, son, after each drive I hit and stuff like that. So, someone like him is just, he's just unbelievable, unpredictable. So, dream guest.
So, finally, as well, you did a series of podcasts discussing gambling in the game, and that you've said you've seen firsthand. If you were given the power at the PFA or the SPFL as a player that doesn't gamble, what support and guidance do you feel would really work to get your colleagues the help that clearly doesn't seem to be there in full view at the moment?
It's tricky. It's a really difficult one. I think the PFA and Scottish clubs, I mean, cash flow isn't great anyway, and it would probably take paying someone to come in, but there's so many charities that could come in, and for me it's getting it at the nub, getting it early. I think speaking to these boys who know far more than me about it, they've had problems, or there was one Paul Pettigrew who's got his own charity. These guys know more than me, and I think rather than being reactive to it all, actually nip it and getting them early, getting these kids, youth footballers, getting them early and telling them, showing them the real danger, showing them people who have been through it and how it wrecked their life, caused chaos, destroyed families, etc., and showing them that, because it's just, once people are in it, because it's hard to get out of it. Once they're in it, that's it, and it's hard. It's right at the centre of the game. If I go into my dressing room tomorrow, we'll be talking about odds on, like, not saying we're gambling, but there'll be boys talking about odds. It's all the time. At Livingston, it was huge. Every day, like horse racing, Cheltenham, etc. And for me, who's not a gambler, I felt I needed to get involved, just to be involved in the change room. It's just right at the centre of everything. So the first thing is getting someone in to get these boys early and really talk to them about the dangers. And I feel it's starting to happen. And then there's a stronghold that bookmakers have on sponsorship, etc., which is a hard one, because you need the money coming from somewhere, but there's got to be alternative sources that are maybe not offering quite as much, but slightly less. There's got to be people that will be interested in sponsoring the Scottish game, the sponsoring strips in this day and age. So it's a hard one. And then you want more from gambling companies as well. But then again, they need these problem gamblers to thrive. Look at the profits they're turning over. Ridiculous amounts of profits, but even without these problem gamblers, they'd probably still be turning over profits. So I feel they need to, if they're being honest with themselves, do more. But listen, we live in capitalism, and without going all Che Guevara on you, but it's profits, and it's jobs, isn't it? So it's a hard one. But for me, as someone who's not a gambler, it was just interested to hear. That's why I did it from their point of view, because I know every club I go in, that within 10-15 minutes, there will be talk of gambling. There will be talk of punting. There will be talk of football, horse racing, whatever, roulette. roulette, whatever. Just it's a poison. It's an absolute poison in the game. And wider society, as well, not just the game.
I must admit, I really enjoyed the episode with Michael McKenna. Of course, you're a former Livi player as well. It was a very, very sort of incredible insight into like the mentality of how it was going at that particular time. So,
yeah, and that's the thing with Michael McKenna. I played with him for years, and I had no idea. And like, it's one of them as well, because see if he was an alcoholic, well, not alcoholic, maybe drugs or whatever, you'd spot more signs, but I just didn't see it. I drove up with him, didn't see it, knew nothing, and then he opened up to me, told me, and then even that podcast, he's telling me things I've never heard before, and I would class him as one of my good friends, and I played with him, and I had no idea. So it's worrying, and also, as you say, wider society is worrying as well, especially with this lockdown. You don't know who it's hitting. The online markets and the boredom. People drove to it by boredom as well. So, it's a worry of mine. It is a worry of mine.
I completely agree. Like, lockdown, especially when the football started back up, the German football. It was like I've never watched a Borussia Mönchengladbach game with so much interest, and then it was like, go on Sky Bet, stick a tenner on a bunch of games, know nothing about the league pretty much. Bayern Munich, Dortmund, know nothing about what else is going on. But you just, like, me personally, I lost like a bit of cash doing it. Not anything serious, I'm not a big gambler, but a tenner here, a tenner there, and it kind of adds up so quickly. But it was purely boredom, and it's something that it needs to be addressed fully. So I had a kind of question to follow on from this. So, obviously, there's the gambling rules all through football. I didn't know how strict it was until my partner, she plays for Livingston for the women's team, and she's been told she's not allowed to gamble on any football.
Yeah.
Do you think those are effective, those rules, or do you think it's not?
I don't like them at all. I'll tell you why I don't like them. It gives because it's not going to stop these people gambling. They're going to put it in other people's accounts, and then there's a shame now attached to it. So even now they realise, right, I'm in deep trouble here. I can't, and they want to reach out and they want to say something to somebody. But now that they want to say something to somebody, they know if they do, they're going to get dragged over the media, especially high-profile ones. They're going to get banned. They might even get sacked by their clubs, and that will drop them in even deeper dog shit. So what's going to happen is the problems are going to keep going and going and going with that. And you see, Brian Rice, I think he came out and he got like a 10 game, didn't he? And then the boy that racially abused someone at Rangers got the same. So what's the bigger crime, really? I'm going off on tangents there, but
you're right.
It's hefty punishments, and it's just going to discourage folk from coming out because they're not gambling. They're not trying to make a quick buck. Like you're saying, your girlfriend's betting on Mexican second division football. Has she got any more know-how than anybody else there? It's a ridiculous rule. I get that your own division, even in your own country to a certain extent, but no, I think you're just adding a greater shame to it, and it's not helping the problem any way, shape or form.
So yeah, Danny, we're gonna move on to your five-a-side team from your time at Livingston. Can you name your favourite players to play with, or are you going to put yourself in? Are you going to put a goalie in?
Yeah, I've got a very small sample size of my year at Livingston, so that's what I'm going with. I've got Mark McNulty, obviously first name on the team sheet. Saved us that season. He's got the hardest side foot in world football. Never mind just Scottish football. Don't know where he generates that from. Carried us, and he'd be great at fives as well. We just shift the ball on the Isle of foot, decent with his left as well, and whip it in. So he'd be first name on the team sheet. By the way, I'm not going for any goalkeeper. By the way, no goalkeeper, no place for DJ. His chat's not good enough. It's horrible. So he won't be making it in. We've got Skugel. I'm going to put him in because even though it was only 6 months or so with him, and he was injured a lot of the time. The flashes that he did show at training, he was like a player I've never seen before, like just different. Like, did everything so quick at the time. Like you take it on the half turn and he was away in one movement, whereas me it would be 3 or 4 movements just to get the ball and then turn and go. It was just incredible at that. And again at fives he would light it up. It's quite a shame to see that he hasn't quite reached the heights that I thought he might. He kicked on at Sheffield United, and I know he's now at Alloa, but I think injuries have maybe stifled him a little bit. I'm putting this next player just because I think you need to keep the ball. Burton O'Brien, you cannot get the ball off him ever.
Yeah.
He never tackles. He never kicks the ball with his laces. Just side foots everything. But you just can't get the ball off him ever. And training the possession boxes, you just wanted him in your team because you'll never be in the middle. You'll never lose the ball. You'll win the game. So yeah. 5 aside, you just have 100% of the ball if Burton O'Brien's playing. We're always on it. So him for sure. And then we're a wee bit soft really. So I felt a nutter in there because of 5. I played 5s and some absolute head cases that play 5s. You need to be able to mix it. So I put Jason Talbot in there, not for his football ability really, which was all right. He was solid enough. He was a good enough left back, but he was just an absolute lunatic with his tackling. I think 2 the worst tackles I've ever seen from him. At training as well, he was just flying in, and I think he's from Salford. I think he's from an edge area down that way, and I would not mess with him. So we'll have him in for that. Yeah. So we've got one more player, and I'm going with this one. I hummed and hawed about having Jimmy, but nah, he's too much nonsense in his head. So I was thought with Danny Mullen because I liked his attitude, but I'm going to go with Keegan Jacobs just because.
Yes.
He just can run all day. And came back for like an ACL and just already fitter than everybody else in the team, which just makes no sense. And I know his brothers are the same. His brothers just run all day. It's like, I don't know, some incredibly good genetics in the Jacobs family. So that is my 5. No place for me. I'll just coach at the side. Not interested in playing. I'll just watch and cheer them on.
It's just like this season has been an absolute shitstorm for any teams in Leagues 1 and 2. How have you found the constant stopping and starting of the leagues? Have you still managed to maintain a good standard personally? And have you enjoyed the fact that there's just game after game after game after game? Or do you like midweek games playing Saturdays?
I thought I would like. It's been hard. It's been very hard. The first thing I'll say has been really hard, just to start and stop, and then when your body's just not made for that. Like the mini pre-season we had this last one before going into these ridiculous amount of fixtures. I like football. I like it a lot, but this was unrealistic, and I still think it is. We've played Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. I'm 30-year-old. I've been chasing children about the playground in my days off, and then I've got to go up to Montrose on a Tuesday night. It's not realistic. You wouldn't ask English Premier League footballers to do this. They don't. They moan about the schedule when they've got a game 3 days after, when they've got their foam rollers out and their rubs, and they're asking us to do it while going to work. It's not realistic at all. And you could, the style, I think we played Dumbarton. It was the worst game of football I've ever seen, because both teams just can't run. To be fair, I've managed myself well, and I've had plenty of rest. I've been given the odd game off, which has been good. But I did a marathon about a couple of months ago, just before we were told we were coming back, because I thought we weren't coming back. I'm still in pain for that. So it's unrealistic to ask players to do this. The standards definitely dropped, and it's not the end of it. Because I think after this split, which is happening, top 5, bottom 5 split, it's back to Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and then playoffs, which will be. So I love football, and I wanted it back so much, but I just felt this is just so unrealistic. They should have kept it 18, not 24. I don't know why they went to that, or 22, or whatever it is. I could have done with one game in a week, one game on a Wednesday and a game on a Saturday, fine. But 3 games a week is just not realistic. Sorry, that's my rant about it.
The glitz, the glamour, the American dream. It's Hollywood, baby. Stories about boats sinking, folks shooting lasers at ghosts, a guy who travelled back in time and almost had to winch his maw for some reason, a film about snakes on a motherfucking plane. But everyone's favourite movie genre is surely a good sports film. The Mighty Ducks trilogy is hands down the greatest trilogy of all time, and no one can tell me any differently. But Scottish football only has one film so far, A Shot of Glory, which, by the way, our man Jake had a starring role in, no joke. But what club is better to make a film about than Scotland's most tin-pot team to ever grace the game? I've asked the boys to give us their ideal Livingston movie. They have to tell us the era they've chosen for the film to be made, who would play the 5 key roles of that era, and the title of the film with a quick dramatical synopsis. So Thomas, why don't you start us on Almondvale Boulevard?
So, my film is called Night of the Living Dead, and it's based around the 2021 season. I'm not going to tell you who the actors are because they're kind of in the synopsis. So as I go through, you will hear who the actors are. So I'll start. Night of the Living Dead, hitting theatres near you next year. It's 2020. The world is in ruins. Fans have been kicked out of grounds due to a global pandemic, relegated to watching illegal online streams every weekend. A plucky soccer team called the Lions are coming out of a successful season. However, things are not all well. New signing Jack Fitzwater, played by Vinnie Jones, has not settled in well. Manager Gary Holt, portrayed by Oscar winner Robert Carlyle, is under pressure and resigns. This leaves David Martindale, played by Peter Capaldi, taking the lead. However, this is not easy. The SFA, headed up by Christoph Waltz's Ian Maxwell, is in the way of Davy's appointment. Despite an excellent start, the wheels start to come off, with an explosive bust-up between Davy and Scott Robinson, played by Jack Loudon. The progress that had been made is in jeopardy. Will the mighty Lions recover, or will they crumble and lose another man to the Motherwell Steelmen?
That was absolutely phenomenal.
Right, so that was incredible. That was so much more detailed than mine. So can you just quickly run through who the stars of the film and who they're playing again?
So,
just to get my head around it.
David Martindale, played by Peter Capaldi.
That's a very good choice. I like that. Very the thick of it. Very good. Yeah. Like that.
I can just imagine Peter Capaldi, playing that character at the side of the park. A la the thick of it. Gary Holt, played by Robert Carlyle. Don't know why. Just was a name that I saw. Thought it would be interesting.
Method actor. I like that.
Yeah. Scott Robinson, played by Jack Loudon, who was in Dunkirk. He's a young lad, and I found him and he had blonde hair once. So that's why I went for Robbo. for Robbo. Jack Fitzwater is played by Vinnie Jones as the new signing who has a rough start to the season and his fortunes start to change, basically because they're both English. And I was looking for a good villain. So who better than Christoph Waltz to play the villainous Ian Maxwell? I can just imagine him sitting in the SFA board meetings, like Blofeld and Bond. Like, yeah. At Davy's fit and proper person's test, turned round, like stroking his cat. Like, I like that image. And he's Austrian for some reason, Ian Maxwell, which is also fun.
No, I like that. That is a very good. You've surpassed everyone. Okay, so that's an absolutely magnificent start, Povey. You're gonna have to keep it going, man. Let's hear your entry for Almondvale Boulevard.
I know. I'll go back to summer of 2009. All seems just things are starting to get a bit wild with the world of Livingston. There's an asteroid coming. Things are not looking good. It's going to hit us. Yep, we're going down to the 3rd division. Livingston have to start all over. How are we going to get a team together to get us back to where we belong? We'll get a bald man, Gary Boland, played by Bruce Willis. And he's going to gather a team together to save the world of Livingston. Of course, this is Livy Armageddon we're talking about. So we've got a team of old guys like Steve Buscemi. Let's just say that was Robbie Winters. Robbie Winters. We've got the handsome, what was it, Ben Affleck, isn't it? Ben Affleck. Maybe young Mark McNulty there. The handsome heartthrob. All these, who else was in it? We've got that Russian dude. I don't know who could play him. It's another old guy. Go Steve Tosh, bring him back from the dead. He's been living in a spaceship for long enough. So yeah, and then of course Bruce Willis, Gary Bolin. He gets these merry men together and saves the world. That's it. I wonder who else is in that film.
Steve Buscemi is Robbie
Steve Buscemi, yeah. And the bear, played by Armandone. Armandone's the bear character. Yeah. There's also is there no drunk in it as well? Who would that be? It's probably Steve Tosh again.
Probably Steve Tosh. So, what's the name of the film? Livi Armageddon.
Livi Armageddon, not exactly. Livi Armageddon.
I love that. Nah, fair play, man. I like that. I like the idea of Steve Buscemi playing international cap. Robbie Willis. Bruce Willis as Gary Bolin. It's an interesting take on Gary Bolin. Willis has the range, though, I reckon. I think that's a good choice. Right, Jake, what is your entry to Almondvale Boulevard?
So mine's a little bit different to others. Basically, I've taken the brief and kind of changed it, but I'm going to play it in, right? So mine is actually a spoof film, a bit like Scary Movie, right? So it's a cartoon, and it's a spoof of a very well-known film called Shrek, right? My movie is called Once Upon a Time in Almondvale, okay? Now,
Cool.
The protagonist of this is a very angry, bald ogre called Smeg. Smeg is played by Gary Bolin, okay? And he's like, get out of my changing room, okay? Raging, very angry, a bit smelly, ogre-like. Now, Smeg has a little sidekick called Donkey Jacket, okay? Who's played by Steve Tosh, okay? Wee bit annoying, always up for a party. Steve Tosh is his wee sidekick, okay? Then the next character we have is the Pussy Man in Predator Boots, okay? Who's played by David Fernandez. Okay, so he's your kind of Puss in Boots character. A bit racist because he's Spanish as well. Then we'll get on with it. Okay, then we've got the Gingerbread Man, who's actually going to be played by Alan Preston because he's called Biscuits. All right, lovable character. Biscuits kind of fits in. Nice. And then to finish off, we have Rumpelstiltskin, who's played by he's a bit dodgy, does some dodgy deals, and also he pours cans instead of pints, which is of course our Masoni is our last character. Because of that special story that Owen told us about when they went down to the stadium, tried to get pints of Italian lager and they're just pouring cans in. So not really towards the brief, a bit of a weird take on it, but there you go. Once upon a time in Almondvale.
No, I liked that. I will try and find a way to send Gary Bolin your regards, who you think is an ogre-like character who smells quite badly. I'm sure he'll be delighted.
He will
come and kick your head in.
Get out.
Right, Owen, what is your entry to the Almondvale Boulevard?
Well, I had to really, really think about this. This is very, very last minute, and I was writing it during pretty much this entire episode, so it is quite shit. But it's got a decent premise behind it, and I'm quite confident about this one. Good. So my film is called The Italian Jobbies. Okay. Right, so The Italian Jobbies, obviously based around the Angelo Massoni era, and it's basically an alternative take on the whole Angelo Massoni era. And you'll see with some of the actors which I've chosen can kind of tell you about the that kind of alternative thing. So first of all, we of course need to have someone playing Angelo Massoni, and I think no one does better for just taking on a character and becoming either a really good guy or an absolute bastard. And I think that Gary Oldman would be the greatest actor probably to take the place of Angelo Massoni with the slicked back hair. He would get all the prosthetics on and everything like that. Then, of course, we need to have David Hay, because Davy Hay, he's going to be sitting in the background working with the Italians and shit, getting basically pumping our club from behind. And I thought that the great Scottish actor Brian Cox would do a good job of Davy Hay. Now, this is where shit starts to get a bit weird. So I'm actually going to say, right, James McPake, of course, James McPake is famous for that time of with the almost ISIS style fucking, gun to the head promo that he had to do, forced to do by Angelo Massoni. But I also thought we need someone who can also play football in this movie, So I thought Martin Compston, on the books, and handsome man as well. Got to have that sort of rugged, handsome man. Then, of course, we have Paul Hegarty, who was the manager for a period during that time. So it's a revenge movie as well. It's Paul. So this is where the alternative side of things comes in as well. So Paul Hegarty takes his revenge against Angelo Massoni. So Paul Hegarty is played by none other than Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
That's not what I was expecting. I was thinking you were going to go for Michael Caine, because of his role in, what was that film? Harry Brown? Something like that.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So,
I'm going. Well, if you want a number one Hollywood box office film, you've got to have Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And we then have Dave Mackay, played by none other than, if you have Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who else is going to be there?
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Kevin Hart, man. Kevin Hart playing that marauding right back, Dave Mackay. And there will also be at some point a wee special guest appearance from George Clooney playing David Fernandez. And then, like, David Fernandez is going to be like the guy who kind of, orchestrates the attack. He's like the guy who just literally shows up, walks off a plane at the end of the film or something, like that could be worked in there to meet Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson after, of course, the inevitable and horrific death of Gary Oldman's Angelo Massoni. So basically, it's an alternative take on the Italian the Italian era, where basically Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson kills Angelo Massoni.
That was the most mental insight into your head I think I've ever had. I liked that, though. I did like it. Right, so I actually didn't do, even though it was myself that came up with this segment, I have to say, so far, Thomas has completely blown everyone out of the water.
Yeah.
Absolutely blown everyone out of the
Agreed.
water.
Yeah.
I've changed the name of mine, by the way. It's going to be Armandone Geddon. There you are.
So, my film is sort of based on The Damned United, but it's like a real Hollywood feel to The Damned United. So, it's looking at Kenny Miller's very short stint at Livingston. But, now we give Kenny Miller a lot of shit. Deservedly so. It was all the Kenny Miller show. But this film, because he's a popular character amongst the fellow Bears, that this will give it a sort of slant on the point of view of Kenny Miller and how Kenny Miller was the one that was wronged. So I've just put, this is from the point of view of Kenny Miller, who was ousted of his place as Livingston manager through a revolt by Craig Halkett, which would never have happened because Craig Halkett's a fellow Bear. And it was like a conspiracy between Davy Martindale, John Ward, and Gary Holt to get Gary Holt into the job, right? So Kenny Miller, the starring role, is James McAvoy.
Yes.
Very handsome man, but he's had the head shaven look before.
Yeah.
Gary Holt is being played by Damian Lewis.
Oh. Okay.
Just because he's ginger. Craig Halkett. This is where it starts getting Hollywood. Ryan Gosling.
Oh, wow.
Sexy.
Oh, wow. Sexy man.
That's
very
brilliant.
very handsome man. Uh, David Martindale's played by Danny DeVito. but like the penguin Danny DeVito.
God,
So he's
he's so scary.
just walking around the club going like.
Is that why David Martindale never wore a suit in the League Cup final? Because people would think he looked like the penguin from Batman.
Like on the sideline, just going. And the role of John Ward would go to Isaiah Whitlock Jr., the guy who says shit all the time on the wire. So like, I just imagine a scene like in a darkened room, and John Ward, played by Isaiah Whitlock Jr., walks into the boardroom and asks Danny DeVito how the team got on today, and Davy Martindale replies, "Oh, we got beat 1-0 in the cup by Motherwell." And then it just cuts to a close-up of John Ward, Isaiah Whitlock Jr.'s face of him just going, shit. So that is my film. And, it's called A Bolt for Holt, because we're bolting towards employing Gary Holt. But I just like the idea of Davy Martindale being played by Danny DeVito.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Boy, oh boy, wasn't that a delightful listen for you all. Thanks again for listening. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at AmmonViewPod, all one word. Follow us on Facebook and YouTube by searching the AmmonView Podcast. And why not check out all of our previous episodes, including interviews with Kenny Duker, Steve Tosh, and all the stars. Why not send us some feedback as well on our social media and follow us to make sure that you get updated with any new content wherever you get your podcasts from. Forza Livi, #Lions in the Camp. Hope to see you next week.